Hey y'all, I'm back and I got another awesome review for you. And as you can see, my cool Dagobah playset set up here with the original white TIE fighter. Okay, so I kind of maybe giving you the hint away with the plastic tray here and the roll caps. But I wasn't expecting on getting this toy. Actually, this toy line, I wasn't expecting on getting it. But I saw the film recently, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta get these again. I had them in 2006. I sold them, I think, in 2008, 2009, because I lost interest. Um, but I'm happy I got them back, and I'm not getting all of them, but I wanted to get a few because this is probably one of my other favorite science fiction movies. And also, it's not only one of my favorite science fiction movies, but it's a vintage toy line. And this is going to be one of the last toy lines that I am collecting. So it's very special to me. And I'll show you what it is. And here it is. This is a 1989 RoboCop in the Ultra Police Torpedo Thompson action figure. So I bought these back in 2006, and I didn't have this particular guy. I had most of the figures from Series 1, and I didn't have really any from Series 2. So it's kind of a long story. The figure that I did get a few months ago, and I recently actually had to throw them away. So one of my favorite figure from this entire line is the Sergeant Reed figure, because he's somewhat rare, but he's just a cool sculpt, and he's just one of those cool characters from the RoboCop films. Now, I got him in the mail, and one of the common things with these figures, not really him, or I kind of noticed with the later figures, but especially with the Series 1 figures, you see how there's a metallic kind of armor, chest armor? Well, that cracks over time, and it was a big flaw in these toys. And that was the reason why I got rid of them in 2008, because they were all flaking and stuff. And, well, the Sergeant Reed figure that I got was sealed on card. It was flaking. But it wasn't on the best card, and I said, oh, you know what, it's on a damaged card, it's not really going to affect it. So I opened him. You know, there were some pieces of his chest plate that flaked off, and long behold, about 3 weeks later, I went to try to test the firing cap feature for these roll caps, because I had bought roll caps in the mail. I didn't want to use the original ones that came with the toy, and I hit it a couple times, and all of the paint kind of fell off, and it was a really bad situation. But I wasn't too upset, because I kind of figured something odd was going to happen with this guy, either if I would have kept him in the box or taken him out. And I didn't really think about it, because I didn't expect it to really kind of fall apart like that. But that also brings up another important issue to address. Anyone who collects carded figures, regardless if it's RoboCop, Star Wars, any toy line, make sure you store it properly. And if you're going to sell it, make sure you sell it cheap. Don't sell it expensive. The Sergeant Reed figure wasn't really that expensive. It was $15. Wasn't really a loss, but you know, just take that in consideration. You know, make sure you give the seller a big discount if it's a figure on a damaged card back, because usually, if that's the case and you see some damage on the figure a little bit, like what I saw on the Sergeant Reed, I would discount it just in case if they run into problems like I did. But other good news is I got him coming in the mail, so maybe in another video I'll do one on him and just kind of talk about him, because he is one of my favorite figures. But other than that, I picked up some other figures of this, but I really wanted to show you this one, because not only is it Series 2, but you kind of see the whole line on the back, and it's also one of the rare figures as well. So let's dive into him. So, this is Torpedo Thompson. He comes with a flame thrower that not only, I think, sparks roll caps, but fires this arrow missile. Now, I think the RoboCop line, out of the pieces that I have of everything in my toy collection, I think it was like one of the first toy lines, I could be wrong about this, where it could shoot projectiles, because I know when the 90s came around, everything was a projectile. But I just think that's really cool because you don't really see that anymore. And the one thing that I loved about the RoboCop line and made me get back into it is definitely the card artwork and just the directions on here for the roll caps and overall everything. So now I'm not going to be showing you the other figures that I got. I'm probably going to show you this one and then my favorite one, which is Reed. Down the road, I'll probably show you a vehicle when I have some money to get it. But I'm not collecting everything from this line. I actually have the Torpedo Thompson in place of a Bob Morton figure, if you're familiar with that character from the first film. That's kind of funny. Back then, when they did toy lines, they didn't include all the characters in the film or a cartoon. And this was based on a cartoon, so you kind of had to use your imagination. So I picked up the Torpedo Thompson because he kind of gives me that yuppie vibe, and doesn't really care. And I could definitely see Bob Morton wearing sunglasses like that. So here is the whole line, and a little bit of history about RoboCop toy line is that a lot of these vehicles here weren't produced. I was trying to look for them for years, and they were never produced, so I'm finally happy that they finally found that out. The vehicles that were produced were the Robo-Jailer, Robocopter, ED-260, which is the ED-209, Robo-Command, Robo-Helmet and Blaster, Skullhog, Robo-Cycle, Robo-1. They did all the figures except this guy right here. They didn't do him. There are prototypes that of him exist out there. But when this line came out, it was kind of controversial because RoboCop, it was a very violent film for its time. And even by today's standard, it is still pretty bloody. But back in the 80s, this was kind of a big deal. They tried making it into a cartoon, and it failed. So you were stuck with all these toys, and what really kind of made the toy line go down were the Vandals here. They didn't really look that intimidating. I feel like the police ones are more intimidating than the Vandals, and the vehicles too. So, yeah, but I feel like, when I got these in 2006, I got them next to nothing, and, these figures now go $15, $20 a pop, so back in 2006, they were like $5 or $10. So the value has gone up in them because I feel like it's now one of those toy lines now that are starting to get appreciated. And I think now collectors are also aware of the paint, the flaking, because I hear that's also, I don't know anything about this toy line, but I was reading up online. They said that is very common with the Silverhawks toy line. From the 80s, so I feel like collectors now have kind of accepted for the problem that it has, because for two reasons. One, I mean, this is a classic toy, it's vintage, and second, it's RoboCop, it's a classic film, so you can't really expect any more, and they wouldn't make something like this again. So in the next video, we'll unbox it. I don't think I'm gonna do the firing feature. I actually could do it. I could do it with the gun. I don't even need to use the figure for it, but he'll probably be in the video. But yeah, so stay tuned for part 2 of this, of the 1989 RoboCop and the Ultra Police Torpedo Thompson. And we're going to get this guy opened up, so stay tuned for part 2.